there tonight. Okay, Ananya, Nancy, we're looking forward to your talk on the TOS.
So this is serendipitous for Nancy and I, because we were both falling asleep last night and wondering what in the world we were going to say, and then realizing that we wouldn't even be conscious of what we were saying. So this is probably better for all of us. So just to, first I just would like to say thank you to ITC, because every time I attend one of these conferences, I realize that we're one family. We're picking numbers out of different boxes, but we are not those boxes. We're studying the same thing. We have this unity amongst us, and we're truly one family. And so this is like a family reunion. So if you haven't met a few of your cousins, make sure you introduce yourself. So I'd like to just recap about what we were talking about last night, because the synopsis that came out, the result from the synopsis that came out last night, was really what the TOS is about. And I'm just going to reiterate some of the thoughts that I noted down last night. So one of the thoughts was compassion as an inner attitude of mind becoming a way of life. With regard to oneness, practicing this in everyday life. So the concept of, or the theme of living and practicing kept coming up last night. One of the other comments was the bodhisattvic commitment to service. Seeing the divine in the other. In other words, altruism. And you know, that's what the TOS is about. It's about creating and promoting community, about instilling the divine, or understanding the divine within ourselves, and then also being able to see the oneness of all life and the divinity in other people. And not just other people, but all beings. So that's all I wanted to say, because I really felt that this is an international conference, and really we should have an international representative speaking to you about TOS. So I said to Nancy yesterday, and this is why it's serendipitous that we're here this morning, because poor Nancy, I came to her yesterday afternoon and said, hey, I think you need to be speaking to ITC tomorrow, or tonight, not me, and because I do the TOS in the United States. And if you want to know what we're doing, please visit our display downstairs. Take some magazines, take some booklets, take some pamphlets. You are welcome to have anything that's down there. It's all free. We do it as a form of service, out of love, because, you know, I mean, we publish for the love of life, because that's what we're about. But Nancy's going to talk to you about what is being done around the world and also in countries in Europe. So I'm going to hand this over to her. Thank you.
Thank you, Ananya. Okay, so TOS stands for Theosophical Order of Service. Annie Besant founded the Theosophical Order of Service in February 1908. This was 6 months after she became the president of the TS Adyar. But she was not the first Theosophist to found such an organization. Actually, Annie Besant and Catherine Tingley had an interest in social service in common and a desire to help others and to for the benefit of mankind. And in 1887, Catherine Tingley started the Society of Mercy, which was concerned with emergency relief work in New York on the East Side. Catherine Tingley was a social worker in New York, Annie Besant was interested and participated in social activism for all of her life, and long before she became president of the society, and of course continued for the rest of her life. And it was through her social work that Catherine Tingley met Judge. Then, in 1899, Catherine Tingley also started the International Brotherhood League. I'm not sure how long that continued, but I think for a while. Okay. So, Annie Besant began the Theosophical Order of Service on the behest of members, TS members, who wanted to put the first object of the society into action. She had another reason, though, and that is because of a letter that was published in Lucifer by HPB that was written by a master of the wisdom, and this is part of that letter, Some Words on Daily Life. Theosophy should not represent merely a collection of moral verities, a bundle of metaphysical ethics epitomized in theoretical dissertations. Theosophy must be made practical, and it has, therefore, to be disencumbered of useless digressions in the sense of desultory orations and fine talk. Let every theosophist only do his duty, that which he can and ought to do, and very soon the sum of human misery within and around the areas of every branch of your society will be found visibly diminished. Forget self in working for others, and the task will become an easy and a light one for you. So Besant had these two impetus that caused her to found the TOS. And I couldn't say, be up here and say, talk about the TOS without sharing with you my favorite quote from Besant, which is, "There is no other in this world. Each is a separate form, but one spirit lives and moves in all." And this actually is very much what all of our groups yesterday and the day before with religion and philosophy came to. We are all one. Unity, oneness. The TOS, when it was founded, had a twofold purpose, and that's the same today as it was at its inception. The unselfish service of the needy and the suffering, which goes without saying, that's the kind of organization it is, and the inner transformation of the server. Now this second one can get a little tricky, because if you're doing service and you're doing it for your own benefit, for your own inner transformation, that's selfish. So we don't really want to do that. But once we start the serving, this kind of thing happens in and of itself. It's automatic. It's unconscious. We don't have to think about it. So we kind of try to forget the second purpose and just go about our work, and then all of the inner transformation, self-unfoldment, as Blavatsky called it, just simply happens. It's inevitable. It can't be helped. Oops. The Theosophical Society around the world is in 35 countries. And we are a small organization, small but mighty, I would like to think, and I hope we become that. I don't know that we're all that mighty yet. We aren't. And we have limited resources. And there are many ways to serve. A person can serve individually on some project that they have. You can serve in your community. You pay attention to service where you find yourself. Grow where you are planted. So you can help in your community, you can help in your family. Or you can help as a group, a TOS group, with some kind of a project. Maybe you're serving food in a soup kitchen. You don't have to build that soup kitchen. Others have already done that. There's no reason to reinvent that wheel, and we don't have, as I already said, the resources to do those kinds of things. But you can help that way. Some groups put together packages for the homeless that consist of warm socks, gloves or mittens, water, snacks, toiletries, things like that, and then either take them to a shelter for them to hand out or hand them out to homeless on the street. But one of the areas that we are in is natural disasters, and that's an area that we do internationally. If there's an earthquake or a flood or something like that, and if we have a TOS group in that area who can actually do hands-on work, we will request donations from around the world, and then those are sent to the group because we want to know we're sending it to someone who will actually do with those funds what needs to be done. So that's one thing that's done internationally, and that disaster can be a natural disaster, or it can be conflicts or war or something like that. So these next slides I'm going to go through pretty fast because we don't want to take too much time, but the TOS in the Philippines gives conflict resolution and self-transformation workshops to the military and to public servants. This could be very surprising to some people. They actually, the military invites them in to do this. In the Ukraine, we've talked about the Ukraine a lot yesterday, and actually I was in Dnipro 3 years ago for Blavatsky's birthday. I washed some of those windows that you saw in the slides, and met with the people. They're wonderful, wonderful people, and they have a program called Hearts Without Borders. And at that time, this is not a recent slide, at that time they were sending needed items to refugees from the conflict with Russia. And they were also visiting border guards in the hospital and giving them food and companionship. The TOS Italy gives major support to Syrian refugees. In 2016, I think it was, somebody in the ITC heard about this at that time, and the TOS Italy is still doing this. They heard about that at that time, and we were invited to give a short presentation to the ITC meeting that year. And I made up the presentation, and then Carol Nicholson, thank you. Carol Nicholson came and she gave the presentation. That was actually while I was in the Ukraine, so that's how that worked. But they send food, there's a pointer. They send food and medical supplies, tents, much needed, where are we? Much needed footwear because of all the walking that they have been doing. They really need footwear. And then, of course, to cook the food, they need wood. So wood is supplied. And besides that, one of the refugees was a doctor, and with the TOS Italy's support and help, they founded a pediatric clinic within the refugee camp. And they treat various conditions. One of them is leishmaniasis disease, which causes lesions and things on the children's skin from the unclean conditions that they are in. There have been several natural disasters. This slide is from the Nepal earthquake from a few years back. I had to use older slides because I did this really quick this morning. But this is from the Nepal earthquake. Look at this. Isn't this, where are you? Oh, that's the wrong thing. Yeah. Isn't that an interesting picture? But so it shows some people helping others there, and some of the destruction. That's from that earthquake. And then the Italian TOS, which is an extremely active group, they provided hands-on assistance after the earthquakes there in August and October of 2016. And I was told that where the earthquakes happened was up in a mountainous region. And most of the younger people, as they get to the age where they can get jobs and things, they leave, as happens in a lot of these little towns. And the town is mostly elderly folks. So the TOS in Italy was helping those people and still is. They are still going there and helping those people. One of the soft and cuddly parts of disaster and war, which that sounds terrible, but anyway, you know what I mean, is the TOS in England began a program called Teddies for Tragedy. And this has also been taken up in Australia and France. And they knit these little teddy bears. Where is this pointer? There you are. They knit these little teddy bears. They're about a foot tall, about this big, and they put little clothes on them for different seasons and things. And then they are given to children who have been affected by war, by conflict, by natural disaster. And psychologists have shown that having something warm and cuddly to hold on to for a little child really helps them to cope with what they're going through. So that's the purpose of that particular project. Another area, and I've just talked about children, another area that TOS is concerned with is education and helping children. And Blavatsky said, children should above all be taught self-reliance, love for all men, altruism, mutual charity, and more than anything else, to think and reason for themselves. And that is the basis for the founding of the Golden Link College in the Philippines. It's been going since about 2002, and now they have, I think it's 8 schools, and they go from preschool through college. And this is what they emphasize, especially in the younger classes. Once you get into the high school, and especially at the tertiary level, studies in Theosophy are required. And they start them in the high school level. But the little children are taught by example from their teachers. There is no corporal punishment. There is a lack of competition. Everyone is welcome. Everyone's work is praised, and that's how they look at it. And 85% of the student body in the Golden Link College is on scholarship. And we just recently started, the TS and Adyar just recently started another school, the Adyar Theosophical Academy. It just started last month with 22 students, and it is housed in the building that used to house the TPH. We've moved them to somewhere else. And that is an attempt to begin a school like the Golden Link College. And the TOS itself has about 12 or 13 charity schools around India that they helped to build or helped to support. And we are in the process of trying to turn those schools into not just charity schools, but theosophical schools, so that they will be run under these same premises that the Golden Link College is run under. And they also, all of these schools will be taught in English medium, so that the children, as they progress to where they can get jobs and things, have English, an international language, basically, to help them in their careers, because that's where it's at these days, you know. TOS Pakistan runs 10 small homeschools in Karachi, and they cater mostly to girls. There are boys in the classes too, but the girls often would not get any education if they were not in these homeschools. In the United the Pine Ridge Indian Reservation is, I think, considered, from the last census that was taken, the poorest area in the United States. And for many years, the TOS in the United States has been helping Rosebud Reservation with clothing and school supplies and Christmas gifts for people. And then in the last, I don't know, it's probably 6 or 7 years. Where's Ananya? Right here. Okay, it's probably 6 or 7 years. Is that right? Yeah. We have been, the TOS in the United States has been giving scholarships to nursing students at the Oglala Lakota College School of Nursing. Another child interest is in Kenya, and they host a library under the trees. Do you want to say something about that, Ananya? Or
well, just that it was kind of funny because, Usha, who's in the sari in white, she said, "Oh, I want you to come see my library. We've donated all these books for the children who live in the slums." And so I said, "Okay, let's go see your library." And we pull up, and I kept thinking, "Okay, where's the building? We're in a parking lot." And it ended up being a library under the trees, and all these children were sitting on mats and reading books, and it was fascinating. And I kept thinking, well, goodness sakes, you don't have to have a building to have a library. You just need books and children. So it really, and it sort of changed the mindset, you know, so we have to think outside the box.
Mm-hmm. And in Kenya, they have also, besides this, they have dug boreholes for water, and they have provided solar lighting for a lot of the small huts and homes, places people live, so that because they have no electricity in those places, and that gave them light at night, in the evening and at night. In Hungary, the TOS there works very closely with the Gypsy community. And they give food and clothing and school supplies and all of that kind of thing during the year. And then there is a summer camp for Gypsy children that was offered. And you can see some of the activities that were enjoyed at the summer camp. And this was a reward for doing well in school, because apparently the mindset in that community is not geared towards education, but a lot of the people there, the leaders there, are trying to change that. And so children who did well were rewarded with this trip to the Gypsy camp, or to the children's camp, summer camp. Okay. For over 20 years, the TOS in Sweden has sponsored and worked closely with disadvantaged children in Latvia. And this picture here shows the distribution of school supplies to children by the TOS Bangladesh, which is one of our newer groups. Healing is another area of TOS's work, and it is very widespread around the world. And here we see healing groups in Madrid and Barcelona in Spain. This is our Wheaton. This is in the meditation room. And they meet every Wednesday immediately after work. And then the picture on the bottom right is in South America. And there's also a healing group. I know we have one representative here from Belgium. There's also a healing group that is run by the TOS in Belgium. And the healing is not just for people. We have an animal healing network as well that goes on. And animal welfare is also a very big concern with a lot of TOS members. These particular pictures are from the Annie Besant animal dispensary in Ajar, in Chennai. And a couple of years ago, we have a new director there, and he has just turned that around. It's absolutely amazing. And a couple of years ago, we got in all these volunteers, and you can see they're mostly young people, to help clean up the dispensary and get things going again. And now they have 120 plus dogs, 10 plus cats, 4 pigs, 2 calves, 2 ponies. They have a donkey who just gave birth last week. So we have a little baby donkey and a camel. And they're working right now on enlarging the space for the larger animals. For about the last 3 years, women's issues have been a focus for the TOS around the world. And just this last December, the TOS in India declared it to be their major project. They usually have one major project. For the last 20 years, it's been mobility items for people. But the government has now started providing those, so we don't have to anymore. And we are changing to women's issues. And they started about 3 years ago with billboards that depicted mostly women's safety issues. And also along those lines, they teach karate. This is from a girls' school, a girls' home. It's an orphanage for girls. And I was there just this past year, and they put on a karate demonstration at that time, and I can tell you, do not mess with these girls. And then vocational training is another big thing. There are several places in India where women learn tailoring. And this is another thing, one group helps another. The tailoring group in Bhubaneswar, the TOS in New Zealand donated sewing machines for them. And then the TOS Italy donated scholarship money for some of the girls who were graduating from this home. And then this is TOS in Kenya, where the women are learning hairdressing. And they also released a book a couple of years ago. It's called Yes, She Can, which is a compilation of articles written by many different people on different women's empowerment issues. The men are not left out. TOS in Kenya trains young men in landscaping and garden maintenance. They have a partnership with a landscaping firm there. And this gives the young men marketable skills so that they can provide for their families. And that's it for today. And as I said, TOS is active in 35 countries, doing humanitarian work based on spiritual concepts. And those spiritual concepts are theosophical. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Nancy and Ananya. We just need 2 minutes to change the mic, so please keep seated. Do you have a remark? Because yeah.
I'm really happy that we got this in this morning instead of when we were all tired last night. And I want to add a comment. You do not have to be a member of the TS ADYAR or any TS organization to participate in TOS activities. And I think this is a wonderful opportunity if we look at it. Here we are at the ITC studying together. I see the TOS and projects within the TOS as a wonderful opportunity to serve together. That's why I'm so happy that we got this presentation from the TOS.
Oh, yeah.
I just wanted to mention very briefly that while many of the projects that we just saw were large or they seem like they're kind of difficult to get off the ground for an individual who's interested in service, my experience was that all it really took was one email. At the Detroit Lodge, we were interested in doing some kind of service project, but we really didn't know how to even get off the ground. And one of the other members sent an email to Ananya, and between over the next 2 months, it just emerged. We found a place to get hooked up with, and we found a way to help, and it just happened. And it started with one email. And so if there's any part of you that has an interest in service, but you're not really sure where to start, you don't need to have a big, elaborate, beautiful plan to create a library or save people from natural disasters, even though those are amazing things, and if those opportunities emerge, you can capitalize on them. All you really need to do is go down to the second floor and grab a pamphlet, send an email and say, I'd like to do something, I'm not sure where to start. Can we start a conversation? And it really does bloom from there. So that's all.